It's over.
Finito.
It's finally over.
The season finale was a finale.
How you doing, Steve? How's life treating you?
Honestly, pretty sad that Saints football's over.
Yeah, it's like bittersweet because that season was so miserable to deal with in so many different ways. But now what the hell am I going to do?
I get to talk about all the speculation of what leads up to the draft right now.
Fantastic.
Yes.
But let's I'm worried I'm going to lose power here, so let's get this thing going. If you want to hit
it's a storming.
It is. Waiting on you.
Okay.
Just the intro.
Gotcha. Welcome to our non-NFC South winning, non-wild card earning edition of Inside the Black and Gold. Who dat? Steve Geller along with Jeff Nowak. The Saints season is finito for 2023. Sadly, there are no playoffs for a third straight season, Jeff. And we've got plenty to talk to in a hell of a game for the Saints against the Falcons. Way to close things out, and then a ton of controversy at the end that everybody's buzzing about more today.
Yes, and you know what? I considered doing this last night. It was just going to be super late, and there was so much to talk about, and I needed time to kind of digest and like collect my thoughts.
Absolutely.
Because this entire first segment, I decided we were just going to do the Jamaal. We're gonna talk about Jamaal Williams and the Jameis and the touchdown and then the pudding pops and all that good stuff. We're just going to get through it. And honestly, I think this can and will be the last time we talk about it because I don't think it's a huge lingering issue. I genuinely don't, as bad as it looks and as loud as people are talking about it. But we'll get through that. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to hear Bobby Hebert's take. We're going to hear what Dennis Allen had to say. We're going to hear what Derek Carr had to say. We're going to hear what Jameis had to say. All that good stuff. Also talked to Eric McCoy in the locker room. And I thought he had a good take on it. So we're going to get into that. Second segment, we're going to dive into, our highs and lows, what worked, what didn't, the typical segment there. And then the final segment is going to be a mailbag as we do. Mm-hmm. So get your questions, get your comments in there. But first, I cannot help but, okay, let's listen to this exchange. We're just going to kind of jump ahead here and listen to this exchange between Jameis and Ed Daniels of WGNO. And this is courtesy of New Orleans Football. They passed this along because there was too many people around Jameis. I couldn't even get my hand in there, but they were kind enough to pass along this audio. And so let's just listen and appreciate how fortunate we are to have this exchange in our memory banks going forward.
Would you say decision made? Was it right there on the spot, right when you're on?
What decision are you talking about?
At the end.
Okay. What at the end? What decision?
To go for the touchdown.
To go for the touchdown.
Was that something decided on the sideline after the pick, or did you wait till you got out there to do it?
We decided on the field as a team. I mean, we don't regret. Do we regret for scoring 41 points on them? Do you think we regret that?
Well, you do have to play these guys twice a year. That's all I'm saying.
We already played them twice.
I know, but I'm talking about the future. Somebody's got to play these guys twice a year. That's all.
How do you feel about it? Tell me how you feel about it.
Not good.
Why don't you feel good about it?
Because you got to play these guys twice a year.
But what about it makes you not feel good about it?
I don't know. I just don't. The head coach tells you to kneel it up. You're asking my opinion?
Yes.
I think you should have kneeled it up.
Okay. Well,
I'm just telling you as respectfully as I can. You answered my question as respectfully as you could, and I'm telling you as respectfully as I can that I respectfully disagree with you. That's all.
You disagree with me or the entire team?
Whoever made that decision.
Okay. So you disagree with the entire team. So thank you.
No, I'm being honest and respectful.
And that's what I'm attempting to do too. And that's what I am doing.
So am I.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jameis. Thanks, Jameis.
Golf claps to Ed Daniels, man. Way to go.
Oh, man. Wow, he's very much kind of get off my lawn there. I mean, like,
yes.
It was just so funny. But Ed doesn't care. Ed will tell you how he feels, right? He's not going to coddle you. But it was just funny to see them kind of engage in that way of like, why do you think it was a bad idea? I also thought it was funny because, and we'll get into this, Ed's point of like, well, you have to play them twice a year. First of all, I don't care.
Yeah, that part I don't care about for sure.
Yeah, and second of all, you could see it in Jameis's eyes. If you watch that video, you can see in the back of his head being like, I'm not playing these guys twice a year because I'm not gonna be here.
Well, I just like when he's like, talking about the play. He's like, "What play? The only play you were in on."
What do you mean? When did we decide? Yeah, it was funny. He was just trying to draw the lines out of. It's just.
Oh
it
yeah,
just
right. It's like I need you to lay it out exactly for me.
But we'll get into this, and yeah. So basically, what happened? Tyrann Mathieu intercepts the ball, gets down to the 1 yard line, says he got caught in the matrix because he just couldn't decide.
He was thinking in his head, should I score? Should I go down?
Yeah, he said like he just didn't think anyone would be chasing him. Which is fair. Like it's probably pretty surprising when the guy actually does chase you down like that when it's 41-17. It's like why is that offensive lineman going for a jog? But hey, and that set it up. And so there's a lot to get into, but let's just listen to what Dennis Allen had to say after the game, because it was weird in that moment. It was weird in that moment because it was like, wow, what a Sean-like thing to do in terms of the ultimate petty play call of, oh, you're going to line up in the victory formation and run a play out of it. Like if you ran a play, that's one thing. But it was already a red flag of like something's not right here, because why would you run a trick play? Because that's what it is. It's a trick play in that moment. And it's not only a trick play, it's a trick play that's relying on the other team. It's like if a quarterback fakes going out of bounds and comes back in, right? It was like, I'm not allowed to hit you, so you can't do that. And it's like, sure, you can do that, but also next time I'm going to knock your head off every time you're going out of bounds, because you've shown me that now I can't trust it. Anyway, so this is what Dennis Allen had to say, and I'm going to leave it. I left it unedited. I want you to hear the entire thing from start to finish, because it's honestly pretty remarkable. I've never heard anything like this from a head coach.
Game. That's not who we are. That's not how we operate. We should have taken a knee. So I want to apologize to them. Because look, we're all like, we got a good rivalry, and it's a heated rivalry. But there's a way we go about doing our business, and I wasn't happy about that. So other than that, I was happy about a lot of things that happened in the game. I didn't like the way the game started. We busted a couple coverages, gave up a couple of explosive plays, which can't happen. And we made some adjustments, and then we played better from there on out. I thought our offense was awesome. I think they did a great job moving the ball down the field. We were able to capitalize a lot in the red zone. We were able to create some explosive plays. I thought Kendre Miller played well. I thought the receivers played well. A.T. Perry, I thought, did some good things in the game. I thought Derek played well. So there's a lot of good things that happened in the game. And I was proud of the way that our guys came out and responded, really in a must-win situation.
Could you clarify, like, what happened?
We should have taken a knee right there. They asked me about getting Jamaal a touchdown at the end. I said I wanted to take a knee. We put victory out there, and the guys kind of wanted to get him a touchdown, and they did that on their own. That's unacceptable.
So Arthur seemed pretty upset after.
He should be.
Is that what he was?
He should be. He should be.
And that's what the on-field issue.
That's what it was.
Is that the quarterback's responsibility there, Coach?
Look, I think there was a lot of guys that wanted to get Jamaal his touchdown. And honestly, I'm not sure exactly what was going on behind that, but other than they wanted him to score a touchdown. So let's move on. Let's go to something else.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. The interesting thing there is they were kind of debating whether they wanted to get Jamaal a touchdown or Jimmy Graham a touchdown on the sideline. But once it got vetoed in terms of, no, we're going to take a knee, the only guy they could get the touchdown for was Jamaal Williams, because he's in the victory formation lineup. Once they sent that out there, because here's the thing, they couldn't just line up and run a play. You can only go rogue in so many respects, because if he sees them just lining up to run a real play, he's going to call timeout. What the hell are you guys doing? But they had to run it that way. And, I just find it interesting. And, as I think more and more about it, it's frustrating because I wish DA had gone up there and handled it differently. One thing that DA is kind of remarkable about is like, he'll say things. I'm like, why did you say that? And he kind of just gets emotional.
To be victory formation and take a knee. And it's like, what?
Yeah, he gets kind of.
And then he goes to the players wanted to get Jamaal a touchdown. We shouldn't have known that.
When he gets kind of emotional about stuff and he's angry, he just spews information out. And it's like, guy, think about what you're saying and how you're going to come off. He never does. And, I do. Part of me wonders if maybe he was considering like, oh, if Arthur Smith's going to get fired, I want to hire him as our offensive line coach or something like that. Now he's not even going to pick up the phone when I call. So I wonder if that's part of it, because everyone knew Arthur Smith was going to get fired, and he did. But I do think it's interesting, and it really is a no-win situation there. DA could have gone out and kind of played it differently, and maybe lied and said, they one way or another he had to explain what happened, and if he went out there and kind of made it seem like he was on board with it and it was just a play, and then it came out afterward that they freelanced on their own, that would have been worse. He went the route of honesty, which it's still bad because it's like, wow, your team's not running the plays you call. Let's talk about that. But man, what was your kind of reaction when you kind of saw that for the first time?
Definitely didn't know what the hell was going. Well, the situation didn't understand. I was like, oh my God, they're really trying to rub it in here. When you go in victory formation, the other team is playing very lax. You're just going down, and they decide to do a little FU and get someone into the end zone for the score. It was a surprise, and then I was like, all right, you know what? Yeah, screw Atlanta. But then when you find out more and more what happened, no, I don't like it one bit. You mentioned the fact that, number one, for me, you have the players not listening to your head coach, and the head coach then going and throwing his team under the bus. So it was like, bam, bam, two bad things, and two wrongs don't make a right. Obviously, we know that, but just makes the Saints look horrible overall to me.
Yeah, and to me, the funny thing is, like, I look at it as it was a perfect storm of getting to that point, right? We
should be talking about Derek Carr throwing 4 touchdowns right now.
Yes, right. And that's another thing is, like, I'm annoyed that this is the only thing anyone's talking about. That's why I want to get it done with this segment and then not talk about it again, because I don't think it's going to be something we talk about for much longer after this, but we do have to address it. Anyway, it's a perfect storm of, like, Jamaal Williams. First of all, they had a first and goal at the 1 yard line earlier in the game, and he was going to get the carry and probably get his touchdown then, but they had a false start, right? So it goes back to the 5, you throw the touchdown to A.T. Perry, So if you get the touchdown there, this is a non-issue. Tyrann Mathieu, if he doesn't go down at the 1, he gets a touchdown instead. It's a non-issue because it's never going to come up, right? If Jamaal Williams had just played well this season and got into the end zone at literally any point over the last 18 weeks, then this is a non-issue when we're not talking about it.
Who the hell is he to deserve a touchdown?
Yes, that's where I'm going with this. But because all of these things kind of came together and coalesced into this perfect storm of, like, oh, and also you have alienated Jameis Winston to the point that he is perfectly fine defying his head coach's wishes, right? Derek Carr, if he's on the field, does not do that. Nope. And it's not because he doesn't want to get Jamaal a touchdown. It's because he has something to lose. Jameis has nothing to lose in this scenario other than, like, DA is going to be mad at him, and maybe he'll be like, well, don't sign Jameis, but everyone's going to be like, screw you, DA. You can't even control your own team. You're telling me to put on my team. Anyway, right. That's neither here nor there, but Bobby Hebert had a take. He had a take. And I actually, I to some extent agree with it. Let's hear it.
Williams, listen, he didn't deserve that damn touchdown at the end. Oh, we want to give him a touchdown. Give him a touchdown for what? He averaged 1.9 yards a carry, had 14 carries, 26 yards. So we're going to give him a touchdown? I mean, he can go to Comic-Con, Pokemon, and all that stuff. I mean, Jamaal Williams did not deserve a touchdown. I agree with Dennis Allen. Maybe I'm an old curmudgeon, old fart, and maybe these young people, but you don't go get your head coach. I can tell you that right now. That never would happen in the past. No, you're kneeling down and you're going to do the right thing. Because you got to be respectful to the game. That's where, as a coach or as a player, and Dennis Allen said the right thing. Because when you look Arthur Smith, he goes, this is a bunch of BS. You damn right it is. You do not do that. That's disrespectful to the game. Now, maybe some young people I don't know, millennials, Gen Z, whatever how you want to describe people, you do not give that touchdown to Jamaal Williams. How has Jamaal Williams deserved that touchdown? He led the NFL last year in touchdowns. So you're going to throw him a garbage touchdown? How about you score before that? And you only average like 2 yards a carry. Come on, that's bogus. That's Bush League.
I think Who-Dats don't care, though, because it was against the Falcons.
Well, it doesn't matter who you play. You got to respect the game. You got to respect the game, and that's why, I don't know. I guarantee you, back in the day, if the coach told you kneel down, then you kneel down. You don't go against the head coach. Now, you might say, well, is Dennis Allen, can he control? You always say, can you control the asylum or whatever, or what's happening? No, that's not right.
Yeah, and so, I disagree with like the in terms of like, oh, I don't need to yell at a cloud and say you can't do this, you can't do that. But I do agree in the sense that like, what is Jamaal Williams suddenly a charity case? Like this is the only way we could get like, does he want like, why would he want that?
Enjoy your trick play victory formation touchdown. Ooh.
Yeah, like does that make you feel better about your season? I don't know. Like I feel like I know it's the teammates standing up for like putting up for their own teammate and like wanting to do something nice. But it is strange, but it is. I also find it funny. Like I'm gonna read you a Jimmy Graham tweet here that just came out a couple minutes ago.
All
and like
the players definitely in support of this. There's no one coming out against it.
No, and also like in terms of everyone supporting Jameis like as a teammate, and I think that's an important thing to do because like he's the one taking the majority of the flack for it, and as he should be, just because yes, this was a team decision, but 99 out of 100 times, if 10 people in the huddle can say like, oh, we want to run this play, but all the quarterback has to do is say no, puts his knee on the ground, done, and it's like just something you talk about on talk shows in a couple of years, right? This is a funny anecdote. Instead, it's this whole thing, but this is what Jimmy Graham said, and I think we can put it to bed with this in terms of, this is exactly how it plays out. He says, "Get off Jameis Winston's back. This man is the best teammate I've ever had. Loves this city, this game, and embodies everything you can ask for in a leader. Was a rare situation, and we all take responsibility. Nobody thought it would get blown out of proportion. Also, fuck the Falcons."
And I think we can at least all agree with that last statement from Jimmy's. That is a good way to close it, man, because, talking about this, like I said, I just think overall, for me, it's a bad look for the entire team, players and coaches.
Yeah, and I think one thing that the players probably didn't anticipate and probably didn't think through quite enough was that this was going to become the story, instead of the fact that they put on this incredible performance, 48-17, and won the game. And I know, Foster talked about that. Eric talked about that a little bit, Eric McCoy. And one thing that Eric McCoy made clear, that Jameis made clear, that everyone kind of made clear was this wasn't them kind of thumbing their nose at the head coach. It might seem that way, and you might be able to say, well, it doesn't matter if they were doing it intentionally. They did it, and it doesn't matter. That's what they did. But that wasn't their intention. Their intention was to get Jamaal Williams in the end zone because he's a great teammate and they all love him. And so we can wrap it up on that. And you can say, like, I know there's a lot of people saying, well, fire the coach because this is unacceptable. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to enter the equation. I don't think you're going to change your opinion because of this. But I do think it forces you to ask some questions.
Why couldn't we get Adam Prentice into the end zone too?
Prentice. They already got him as redemption arc in Tampa. They don't need to do it again. But I think it's definitely an indicator that Jameis Winston doesn't expect to be back, right? And is as he shouldn't. He got kind of screwed over last year. The fact that he came back at all was kind of remarkable. I'm sure he'll be able to find a backup job somewhere and maybe compete for a starting job.
It'll be funny if he goes like to Atlanta or Carolina, something like that, obviously.
Yeah, we'll see. But that's the end of that. Anything else you want to add before we move on to something that actually matters?
No, I can't wait to celebrate tonight with my glass of bourbon to Jamaal Williams, 1 rushing touchdown in 2023. Woohoo!
It was all worth it.
Yeah.
All right. This is Inside Black and Gold. I'm Jeff Nowak. He's Steve Geller. We're going to come back with, the highs and lows, what worked, what didn't, stock up, stock down, whatever you want to call it. I've called it just about everything. Then the final segment's going to be a mailbag, so make sure to get your questions, comments in there, and we will get to them. But again, at Jeff Nowak on Twitter, at Steve Geller WWL. We made it. It's the end of the season, baby. Dennis Allen talked for 47 minutes today. Like, what? Anyway, we'll get into more when we come back.
Be tons of changes coming.
Maybe.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. All right, y'all. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. I'm Jeff Nowak. He's Steve Geller. We're going to actually talk about the football game now. And again, I need to emphasize, like, I didn't want to spend that whole first segment talking about that play, but we had to. It had to happen because you can't ignore it. And I assure you the front office won't ignore it, but you also should not take away from the fact that you went out in a game you had to win, and in a game that the Falcons should have felt the same way. Like, we can say, the Panthers didn't get the job done, which they obviously didn't. The Packers won, and that eliminated all playoff hopes for the Saints. But, that's not, you weren't playing with that in mind. You were playing with the idea that if you won this game, you would give yourself a chance. And the Falcons were doing the same thing. And the Falcons played in such a way that it got their coach fired. That Arthur Smith, I don't even know, like, that's not a long flight back to Atlanta, but I don't know if he had gotten 2 feet off the plane before he was, like, accosted with the information that he was going to get fired. Because it came out quick. And I do wonder if because I have a feeling he gets fired either way. But I think it's more of a discussion if it's not 48-17, if you didn't lose by 30. And that leads me into, one of the things that went right was the Saints listened to my request and delivered. And this is from First Take before the game.
Definitely feeling positive about, obviously, the Saints' chances against this Falcons squad. I think they can take care of business here.
I want a statement win, man. I want a statement win. I don't want just a win. I don't want to eke this out. I want to beat them by 30.
All right, so you're looking for a step on their necks,
yes,
and twist kind of deal.
Yes, it's about time. You're at home. That team should feel miserable about what they've been able to do the last 4 weeks. They should be a shell of themselves. Go out there and beat them to a pulp. Do it.
The only bad thing is if you do that, there's a good chance Arthur Smith does get canned, and then who knows what. I know there's rumors about Bill Belichick.
I don't care.
Harbaugh.
I don't care. They can bring in whatever coach they want. I'm going to say the Saints beat you so bad you had to change coaches. You couldn't even save face. Again, I'm going about this in a positive way. That's what I want to see, man. I want to see it.
Breaking news, Jameis Winston actually got the touchdown for Jeff. How about that?
Yes. Yeah, most of you didn't realize that. You thought they were getting in for Jamaal, but they heard me in the pregame. And they're like, oh, no, we're only up by 24. We need more. And they did. It was funny because
we're going to fulfill it.
I actually, right before that interception by Tyree, and I had looked over to Tyler, the spotter, and I was like, man, I wanted a 30-point win. They're only going to get 24. I'll take it, though. And then it's almost on cue. They're like, no, they're going to get it.
Right.
And then I thought, oh, man, we're not going to get it because they're taking a knee. And then, look at that. They got in. Anyway, but 48 points, right? Remember early in the season when we were talking about how long it's been since they scored 20?
Right. We couldn't fathom 48 points. Christ.
Yeah. And so, what? Everyone, I think it's important. If you're going to be critical of someone and they come out and deliver, you should acknowledge it. Right.
I get the run game. Hallelujah.
Hey, someone commented well, Jamaal Williams hasn't been bad. Look at the offensive line he was running behind. And I responded to that with, hey, did you see Kendre Miller running behind the same offensive line? Jamaal looks like he's running in slow motion. And I don't know, maybe the hamstring injury just kind of sapped him. He didn't ever really get back to what he wanted to be. And I think that's possible, right? Hamstring injuries are pain. He got out of shape and he was never able to really get back to where he felt like, he was at the beginning of the season. But either way, this offense, what happened, particularly Derek Carr over the last month of the season. And I can't stress enough, this is not like a couple games. This is not like, 2 quarters and then 2 quarters. This is 4 games. This is 16 quarters of football. And you're looking at it and saying, holy hell, this is remarkable. So his last 4 games, 96 of 128. That's a 75% completion percentage.
Right.
Completed over 4 games. He completed 75% of his passes, just shy of 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, 1 interception. And in 3 of those games, you won by double digits. The other one was in LA. Obviously that was not ideal for anybody, but I do think, the defense was the biggest culprit in terms of, you just allowed them to go just down the field whenever, and the offense didn't do enough to keep up in a shootout, but that had to be a shootout because of the way the defense was playing. Right.
It wasn't fair to this team at all. We talked about it too. Obviously, a short week out west. It's just an unfair advantage right off the bat. And this team was struggling with shit as it was, so just adding that to the mix didn't make it any easier.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's easy to look past it and say, okay, it was the final 4 games and whatever. Look at the opponents, but these were decent defense. These weren't defenses that got just run over all year. The Falcons and Bucks have been 2 of the better defenses in the NFL. The Giants have been a good defense in terms of forcing turnovers. They forced 12 turnovers in the 3 games prior to facing the Saints. They didn't get one. And so, you look at it and you say, yeah, this offensive line was not elite by any stretch, but they got better as the season went on. Derek got healthier, he started playing better. And I think you look at it and say, this is the core, right? You're not changing quarterbacks. The receivers you had at the end of the season, I would expect, are the receivers you're going into next year with, maybe an addition here or there. I don't think you're going to bring Mike Thomas back. I don't know how you kind of navigate that, but I think it's time to kind of kickstart the next generation. And we've seen over the last month that can happen. But, we talk about what went right. Derek and this offense kind of finding a rhythm a little bit too late, but it's not, and I asked a couple of people this because I've never played in the NFL. I don't know how you carry things over from season to season, but, I think Peyton Turner talked about this on the defensive side, and I think it's true on the offensive side too. It's you don't just pick up where you left off. Every season you're kind of starting fresh to an extent, but it's not completely fresh. You add some new pieces, you change some things, maybe a new coach here or there, but there is some level of continuity that you bring from one season to the next. The rapport that Derek was able to create as the season went on with Chris Olave, that's not going away. The comfortability he was able to build with A.T. Perry, that's only going to keep building. Understanding how to use Rashid Shaheed, hit him over the top, that's not going away, right? Kendre Miller, a guy who, I think was getting a lot of grief, probably unfairly, in terms of he didn't want to be hurt either. But what I would say to people is when you've seen him get opportunities, he's flashed.
Right.
And you saw him have a great game. He gutted through that injury to some extent. He was sick all week. But I mean, the burst he showed in the run game makes you feel really good about okay, this young core group of skill players that includes Jawan Johnson. Again, another example. Those are things you can build on, whether you make changes on the coaching staff or whatever. Their chemistry is what I'm the most encouraged about in terms of how you can come back next season and maybe not pick up where you left off, but start. I don't think it's you're starting up here, but wherever you started this year is probably closer to here. You can't really see this, but you understand what I'm saying. You're not starting from where you were. You're starting from about halfway up the ladder, and then hopefully it takes you a lot less time to get to the top of the ladder, right? And so to me, it's you're talking about stock up. My stock is up in the offense significantly from where I was, maybe 6 weeks ago.
There was also, it's holy crap. They're using Taysom right again. They used him early. Run game receiving was a big contributor and a big part of this game, obviously.
Yeah, and you didn't have Alvin either. That's why, you look at that and you say, who are the Saints stars? If you went into the season and said, name the top 3 stars on this team, you would have said Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Marshawn Lattimore. Some people might have said Chris Olave, but I think
just stay offense there.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of recognition, right? You could, but you didn't have any of those players, and you put on the performance you did.
Right? No, man, exactly.
And I think like you're talking about this old roster. They have one of the oldest rosters. Well, that's kind of the aging core that you're really looking at is Mike Thomas, Marshawn Lattimore, Chris Olave. I'm sorry, not Chris Olave. Alvin Kamara. And instead you saw these young players go out and make plays. So, that's where I look at it. And yeah, I just think there's a lot to be frustrated about, and you're not in the playoffs, and I get it. But you're talking about what went well.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about it. Obviously, Derek Carr's performance. Who was the touchdown to that he just dropped it in perfectly? It was like this. It was a beautiful, right in the bucket kind of play.
Well, he had two touchdowns to A.T. Perry. And then he had that one to Chris Olave, which was this insane bobbling tipped catch. And then he had one to Rashid Shaheed that he went over the top, and Rashid went up and got it. They were all really nice plays by the receivers.
Yeah, it was great to obviously though Carr comfortable, the offensive line doing their job, and yeah, he was just efficient. You look at what was it, 22 of 28, if I ever remember.
Yeah, I think it was 22 of 28. And I mean, like it's not just Carr, it's also like these playmakers that are making plays. Like,
right.
I don't need Carr to be a superstar. I don't need Derek Carr to be Pat Mahomes, but I do need him to be able to get the ball to his playmakers. Right. And like the last 2 weeks, I've been impressed with his poise in very compressed situations too. Right. The last 2 weeks, he's gotten the ball at the 1 yard line, and on third down with, in his own end zone, he went over the top to A.T. Perry and Juwan Johnson to get out from the shadow of his own goalposts. And like, I think that's a sign of a confident offense, right? Like if you don't trust your line to block, if you don't trust your quarterback to make the right throw, if you don't trust your receivers to get open, you don't call that play, you run. And so it's not just Derek, it's also Chris Olave. He's just kind of edging his way up the superstar ladder. I think he's like right on the fringe where like people are going to really start talking about him in the top echelon of receivers pretty soon. Like Rashid Shaheed, elite deep threat, A.T. Perry, elite size, jump ball guys getting more and more confident. So to me, that's those are the stock up players.
Yeah, to me too. You could tell Chris was kind of hurting at the end of the year, but he gutted through it with that ankle issue, man.
Yeah, I thought he looked better in this game. But yeah, the definitely, and I've been really impressed with him over how he kind of bounced back after that rough stretch. A couple other guys that are worth mentioning. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's like exactly. It's like you love to see that when guys don't, cower, they rise to the occasion instead, and fight for it. And definitely Chris is one of those guys.
Yeah, another couple of guys that are worth just noting. So Tyrann Mathieu is not just a veteran, a leader, whatever. He might be the most durable player in the NFL, right? He played all 17 games last season. He was one of just a handful of players to do that. This season, he not only played all 17 games, he missed 10 snaps all season. 10. That's less than one a game. That's insane. He's 32 years old, 33? I mean, and he's
32.
He led and it's not like he's not like getting contact. He led the team in solo tackles last year. So, just the ability to just say like, a consistency, availability is so important, and just knowing what to expect from a guy. And when you consider like Marcus May has just been the most inconsistent, unavailable guy for whatever reason, whether he's suspended, whether he's hurt. Right. And in the other side, you have Tyrann, who is the exact opposite. And I think he just deserves a lot of credit for that.
No, like you said, one of the Saints Iron Men there, that he's just of that same ilk of like a Cam Jordan, DeMario. They want to be out there. They love to play this game. And just the respect he commands from every single player too, because what he's done, everybody knows that he's been at the top and still like brings it every single time out there as well. I love what you get from him as the player and as a vocal leader as well. Obviously, the Saints have a lot of strong voices in that locker room, no matter what people think.
I agree. A couple others that are kind of more honorable mentions than anything else. Blake Grupe, He made his final 7 field goals of the season. He went 40 for 40 on extra point attempts this year, which is, it's funny because one of the biggest gripes I have is he was only 10 of 12 from 20 to 29. It's just funny because he was 40 of 40 from 33, which is how long the extra points are. So clearly it's not really, and you look at that and you say, well, that's frustrating. You can't do that. But I look at it and say, well, clearly something went wrong on those 2 kicks.
Exactly.
So,
Amen. Right.
And so you look at, maybe there was something wrong with the operation, whatever. Like, you don't miss 27-yard kicks because you're bad. You miss those kicks because something went wrong. And so I'm not going to overvalue those misses. And because when you take them out, you're talking about 6 for 6 from 30 to 39, 8 for 10 from 40 to 49. I'd love for that to be 10 of 10, but you obviously had a couple tough misses. And then 6 for 9 from 50 to 59. Like, that's about what you would hope for. That's pretty elite in terms of, you're not going to make every 50+ yard kick, but if you're hitting 70%, it's a pretty good number. So 30 for 37 on the year, that's 81%. Again, you'd love that to be a little higher, but as we mentioned, the 20 to 29 kicks are kind of an aberration. And when you look at a rookie kicker and you say, this is probably the point that you'd expect the most inconsistency, right? I look at that and I don't say like, well, I wish he was better. I say he's going to get better, right? That's the idea. You're a rookie. So you would hope that as you go forward, you get a little bit more consistent. You eliminate some of the mistakes. And, if that's your baseline, I'm really happy about it. He set a new rookie record for kicks made in a season, breaking Will Lutz. I think he has 30 total. Yeah, I just said he had 30 or 37. So, I think he and Lou Hedley both kind of went through those rough stretches early in their rookie seasons. And I think they both bounced back. And I think you feel, obviously, like, I would have been fine if they kept Will. I still would be fine if they kept Will. But I don't think that, there was a lot of criticism being thrown at Blake Grupe. A lot of people saying, cut him, find anybody else. Robbie Gould sitting on the couch. I'd rather see him in there. I don't know. I think he bounced back pretty well in the end.
No, like you said, both undrafted special teamers, man. I was worried definitely going into the season with that. And, we talked about Grupe. Yeah. You talk about Grupe too, but like Hedley, it really stands out when you're at the game. Man, those punts are ugly, but they are effective.
Yeah, I think he got a little better as the season went on too, right? And that's the thing. You're talking about rookie kickers. The idea is they're gonna get better. And so yeah, like the leg's never gonna blow you away. But again, I think he had the third or fourth fewest return yards, and the other guys that you're comparing him to kicked like 15 times fewer than he did. So like if that's your goal, if your goal is to eliminate returns from the game, he did that as well as anybody in the NFL. Now, obviously, you'd love to be able to flip the field. You'd love to be able to, do a couple other things. But he also, what did he have? 32 kicks inside the 20, maybe 31. Like he had one really nice kick that was, fielded at the 6. And why do you field a kick at the 6? Well, because it's kicked in such a way that the coverage is there and it's not going to bounce forward, because there's just kind of that magician ability to control where the ball's going to bounce. That we talked to, I can't remember who I talked to Peyton Turner. He was talking about how his college kicker was Australian, and he was like, yeah, it seems like every kicker you meet beyond the high school level is Australian, because it's just they just do it there. They just do it better. So yeah, the specialists, I think, despite a lot of grief early in the year,
for sure,
you're going to go into next season, you're going to feel a little better about it.
Yeah, that was, like I said, that was definitely one you're like, I don't know. I can't believe you're going to go in with a rookie undrafted punter and a rookie undrafted kicker. What could go wrong? And they didn't. They weren't an eyesore of the team. They weren't a sore spot. Like you said, you got cost the game maybe in Green Bay, but that wasn't just Grupe's fault either.
No, I mean, the game should have never come down to that kick.
Right.
But one thing interesting from that game that DA said today, I'm just going to mention it because there was a punt in that game. They punted from, I think, the 39-yard line rather than go for like a 56-yard, 57-yard kick. And he said today, like, that decision, and I remember being very critical of that at the time. And he said that the results of that decision stuck with him. And one of the reasons he was so aggressive later in the year, like for example in LA, which people were critical of, is that he kind of saw how that went and he just felt like that was not the right approach, and so he changed his approach. And I tweeted that. Some people were like, "Oh, we're going to pretend that's a good thing." I'm like, I can be critical of coaches. I can be critical of DA for a lot of things. Not being too stubborn to change strategies is not something I'm going to be critical of. I just thought it was interesting because you did see that play out, right? Like you did see him go for it in situations a lot more frequently and be a little more aggressive in like 4th and 2 or 4th and inches. And when it 4th and 5 even in the Rams game. And when it doesn't work, you open yourself up for a lot of criticism. When your whole game, for example, Dan Campbell is going for 2 and you don't get it and you lose because of it, everyone's going to be critical of it. But, that's if you have a philosophy and you believe in it, I think you should stick with it. I think you should never kick a field goal inside the 5-yard line. That's one of my philosophies. If you are inside the 5-yard line, I don't care. I don't think you should ever kick. I think you should always go for it because 3 points is like giving up 4, right?
You in that Sean Payton school of philosophy there.
Well, I mean, like, think about it. Like, worst case scenario, you don't get it, and they have to start a drive at their own 2. Right? Like,
right.
To me, I'll take that trade-off every time when the alternative is 3 instead of 7, right? And it's like, I trust my defense. Anyway, so that's
right.
But I thought that was interesting.
Shout out to DA's first winning season as a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, everyone hates him.
Right.
And I understand why. But yeah, I mean, that's, I don't hate him as a person, like, I think that's where I get frustrated is like, God, people are so aggressive.
Yeah.
And it's like, geez, he's not like, like stealing your 401k. He's just coaching a football team here. And we're talking like, he should, jump off a building. It's kind of aggressive. But anyway,
football is life, brother.
Football is life. Football is death. Okay. So one more from me, in terms of the what went right. And I have a couple notes on what didn't go right. Demario Davis, I think we should do an investigation to see if he has Benjamin Button disease. Because I don't know if he's getting better, but he's definitely not getting worse.
Right. I don't feel like there's a drop off from Demario at all.
At least not in the last several years, like maybe from like 2017, which was like, peak, like that's, but you look at it and so I don't know, like the New Orleans Football did a really good feature. Brooke Kirchhoffer kind of went behind the scenes with Demario and talked about his like recovery routine and all the cupping and all the crazy stuff he does. And clearly it's working. Right. And, he said that his goal is to play for 2 years after LeBron retires.
Whoa.
Like LeBron's not going to retire anytime soon. So like maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years from now, LeBron retires. And then Demario intends to play multiple years beyond that. That's his goal. So if your thought is like, maybe he retires this season. Well, unless something happens, like maybe he has an injury or something that forces him to retire, he has no plans to retire, and he shouldn't, because he's still very, very good. There was a play in that game, when the score, but this game wasn't always a blowout. It was 17-17 at halftime, and the Falcons got the ball with a chance to go up.
Right.
The first play of the second half, they run a throwback screen. Everyone is fooled except for Demario, and if he doesn't make a tackle, if he misses a tackle, that's a 20, 30-yard gain. Maybe Tyler Algier makes somebody miss and goes for however many yards. You've already let up 2 chunk plays in that game, so it's not exactly like you're insusceptible to that. He tracks it down. He makes the tackle for a loss. 2 plays later, Desmond Ridder throws it right into Alontae Taylor's chest, and I think that was the end of the game. I think that was the moment that the Saints won that game in terms of the Falcons didn't score in the second half.
Right.
And so,
Demario took their strength away from them. They couldn't run the ball anymore.
Right. Demario Davis might be eternal, or aging backwards. Either way,
Cam was that way. Unfortunately, he's not.
All right, Cam dealt with a lot of injuries this year. He played in all 17 games, which is actually kind of crazy. You know, he was dealing with an ankle injury, a high ankle sprain that he compounded with a low ankle sprain, which he said he didn't even realize was possible. He had like a bulging disc in his neck that he dealt with all year. I think he did appear on the injury report with a shoulder issue at one point. But yeah, these guys deal with everything under the sun, and a lot of times you don't know about it. But DeMario had that knee injury midseason that, you know, was a miracle recovery. Doctors gave him 0% chance to play, and he did. But yes, so that's my last thing. Do you have any positives you want to point at? Any other positives before we go to the negatives?
We talked about Kendra Miller, obviously, right?
Yes.
I just thought that was, you know, great to see, and it was like he had his flu game for this team, and I know that dude is not lacking any confidence at all. I love hearing him speak.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've gotten into it with a few people who were just like, Kendra's a bust. Kendra's a bust. I'm like,
no, man,
he's hurt. You know, I'd love to be able to say, like, you know, this isn't going to work out because of this and that. He's hurt. You know, like, and I think he showed in that game why, you know, they liked him, right? Like, it's, you know, you can't project health in that way. But you know, the running backs on this team have 2 total plays of 30+ yards or more. 2 all season. He's got both of them, right? That run in that game, that toss, that was all him. Like, that play was dead. And not only did he make Jesse Bates miss, which is not exactly an easy thing to do, in the hole, he then took on like 4 defenders and scored anyway. You know, I just think, like, you're looking for reasons to appreciate the youth on this team, and I think just the burst he had in that game where he wasn't 100% anyway. Like, you know, I think that going into next season, you feel a lot better about that. The other guy, sorry,
I was going to say, I got to give a little to Alontae Taylor, even though he got benched again. But man, to have that fortitude about yourself, he came back and still made a play.
He did. I almost think like the switch messed with Desmond Ridder. I think no, because he was playing inside, and then he got benched for the second time in 3 games, and then he came back in on the outside. I almost think that kind of threw off. Like, Desmond thought he was going to do one thing, and instead he did something else because he was playing a different position.
Alontae Taylor on the outside.
Yeah,
wild.
I know. I'm going to talk about that. But first, one more thing before we move on. You know, it's not really a stock up or anything because I still have all the same concerns I had about him going into the game. But I just, you know, Peyton Turner, he worked all the way back. He played in this game. He had a couple QB pressures. He jumped on a fumble. He didn't get hurt.
Great. Bravo.
The Saints went 2-0 in game Peyton Turner played this year.
Wow.
Week 1, week 18, baby. I talked to him in the locker room today, and I was like, it's kind of weird to just bookend a season like that. And he was like, oh, yeah, I mean, that's how you draw it up. You know, and the funny thing is, like, I think, like, you don't really get exposed to Peyton that much because he's never on the field, but he's a really, I enjoy talking to him. Like, he's a really enjoyable person to be around.
Okay.
And so you root for him. Like, I root for him. And maybe that's kind of skewed my perception of it a little bit, but I'm still rooting for him. You know, and I think he's talented. Like, I think he's talented when he can get on the field. He just has not been able to get on the field. And, you know, you could say he's a bust. He probably is. Like, I think that's what would qualify as a bust when you're a first round pick and you played 14, 15 games in 3 years. But,
well, unfortunately, Trevor Penning's coming up his rear for that spot.
We'll talk. That's a whole other topic for a whole other day. I actually talked to I talked to a couple people about that today, but I want to get into that in a later episode. This is about the things that happened. But yeah, a couple things that went wrong. Slot Alontae Taylor.
Yeah.
He got benched for the second time in 3 games. The experiment is over.
Yes.
Stop it. I do not want to hear one more thing about Alontae Taylor being a slot cornerback. Stop doing it. Now, one of the reasons, and I've said this and I'm going to keep saying it, I think you trade Marshawn Lattimore is because I really like Alontae Taylor. I think he is very talented. I think he has a great future. And I also like Paulson Adebo. And I think you want to open up a lane for Alontae Taylor to start. And if you're able to get some assets in the process in terms of trading Marshawn after June 1st, when he will not count against you, they have put an option bonus on his contract that won't kick in until the week before the regular season, and that is tradable. So that kind of leaves you open, you know. And if it doesn't work out and you want to bring him back, or if it does work out, I don't know, and you want to bring him back, fine. But I do not think Alontae Taylor's a slot cornerback. He's played terribly in the slot. I think you risk ruining his confidence. Now, all that said, I think it's useful I think in the long run, this season will end up benefiting him because the ability to bump inside and play the slot in a pinch is a very useful skill. I don't want to see him be the starting slot cornerback, but like, for example, next year you have somebody else in there, they get hurt in the middle of a game. What do? Well, Alontae can bump in. So, like, I think in the long run, he will look back and say, this was a good thing for me. But I don't think he is a slot cornerback. It did not go. I mean, that 71-yard touchdown to Bijan Robinson was all Alontae. He did not bump. He needed to expand and cover the running back on the swing route, and he was too slow. He got I think he maybe got screened off of it. The tight end was coming through on a rub route, and he just kind of died on it. Like he didn't work around it, and I think he just kind of lost track of Bijan or underestimated how fast he is. And he tried to undercut the ball, but that wasn't the plan. That was the last resort. He was out of position, and he got benched, rightfully so. Even that one to Scotty Miller, I think he was involved on that and maybe took a bad angle. But
both chunk plays, huh?
Yes. So my stock isn't down on Alontae Taylor specifically. My stock is down on slot Alontae Taylor.
Right, totally. I'm with you for sure. They got.
I do not
experiment over. No more, please.
And if we go into next season, next training camp, and I hear about how he is back in the slot, like as a starter, as the starting slot corner, I will never stop asking DA about it. Like I'll be like,
why do you have him back in that position?
Right. It just can't work. It just cannot. It cannot be the plan. We talked about the Jamaal Williams stuff in the first segment. That's on my list in terms of kind of the grip on the locker room and like how I start to question that. But so we won't go into it again.
Thank you.
Bully ball, right? Jamaal Williams was terrible this year. He was terrible in this game. I don't know what you do next year. I think you probably bring him back, at least for camp. I think he might get cut in camp if he plays like he did this year. Like if he shows like he did this year, I don't think he makes the roster.
See, I don't know where it all went wrong because I didn't feel like we ever saw him in camp and went, oh man, this guy looks like he might have lost this step. I mean, granted, we haven't seen him playing, but I remember everyone excited about the running backs going into this season. It didn't pan out. Obviously, injury had a lot to do with it for some guys.
It's tough because you don't really see football in training camp. So it's tough to gauge athleticism. It's you don't see full contact I think there's a chance you look back and you say that hamstring injury really affected him, and maybe you get into camp next year and he has that burst back and he looks like a different guy. But like if the player I saw on Sunday is the player that shows up at training camp, he's not making my 53-man roster. Because he, as a post June 1 cut, he won't cost you any money. If you cut him pre June 1, it'll cost you about $1 million. There's no incentive to cut him early. I think he's gonna be on the camp roster. But again, like I don't know if he makes it, and so that's been rough. My other stock down, Arthur Smith. I usually save this for the Saints coaches and players. I mean, come on, dude. You're gonna throw a temper tantrum? Get out of here. Get out of here. Grow up. Play defense. Get out of here.
Yeah, see, I understand his anger because who the hell does that on victory formation?
He's mad because he's going to get fired and he's looking for an outlet. But like, get over it.
I hear you.
Go home, Arthur. Don't give me your shit.
In the end, though, fuck the Falcons. That's all it comes down to.
Ship yourself back to Atlanta.
Like Jimmy said.
And FedEx. With your FedEx fortune.
Like you said, though, what happens all of a sudden? DA's like, well, our new offensive line coach, we're very familiar with him.
Yeah. Speaking of coaches, there's a report out from Jeff Duncan that the Saints are considering John Gruden. But Mike Triplett just tweeted that it was more of just a friendly dinner. So who the hell knows? I don't know. That's another topic for another day. But I
was going to say that makes me think about the Baltimore Ravens honoring Ray Rice.
Thanks. All right, let's wrap up that thing. We'll come back and do a mailbag. So if you have any comments, questions you haven't gotten in there, please do it. But there's a lot, so we'll do what we can. But all right, This is Inside Black and Gold. Thanks everyone for listening. Everyone who's been hanging out, dropped in a comment, dropped in a question. Appreciate it. I'm Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller. We will be right back. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. And this will be our live mailbag segment. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in there. We'll start.
I'm sure there's so much to talk about in the mailbag.
Yes.
What could be on Saints fans' minds right now?
Pammy Whammy, she got a lot going on. She says, "That's right. We don't care about hurting the Falcons' feelings." And I identify with this. Like, again, that is one of my biggest frustrations about the whole DA thing and the "this is not who we are" comment specifically. He's like, this is exactly who we are. What are you talking about? This is not who we are. Being petty against the Falcons is like an entire identity. Like, I remember going to that building and remember when they blew up the Georgia Dome and the bus parked in front of the camera and then the Falcons came in and they were doing their running into the stadium, and on the video board they had a bus go in front of it, right? Like the Saints trolled them so bad in an us versus them segment that Arthur Blank complained to the NFL. If you go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, you know what
Visitor.
it says on the scoreboard? Right. Visitors. Like, this is the deal. And again, like, and what frustrates me is like it's the best example of how Sean and DA are different, because Sean understood that. Sean understood that he could have played the villain in that scenario and everyone would have eaten it up, right? And DA just won't do that, you know? And it's funny because he kind of comes off as this hard ass, but at the end of the day, he's not that.
No, at this point, I almost wish that when Winston went to him and said, we want to get this touchdown for Jamaal, he was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And it just would have bonded. It would have been more of a bonding thing.
Exactly. And like, I don't think the Falcons would have complained, or at least, Arthur Smith might have complained, right? But at the end of the day, the actual like valid basis for their complaint is that you did it out of the victory formation. And the reason you did it out of the victory formation was because DA wouldn't do it. And the players had to do it unilaterally. Like they had to, not unilaterally because it was everybody, but that's not what that word means. But like the players had to do it independently of the head coach, right? And because of that, that's why it's this whole thing. But all you needed was DA to understand, no, this is the Falcons. We're not taking a knee at the one. Right. We're going in. We're doing what Sean did to the Eagles, right? When he went on 4th and 7 and drew through a dime to Alvin Kamara to go up like 35 instead of 38, right? Like that's what I want to see. It's like I wish DA understood that. I really do. I wish he understood that, but he doesn't. And it's not a fireable offense, right? I see people saying, "Oh, they fire him." Like, but it is like just such a good indicator of why the fan base feels so disconnected from the team, right? Like Sean turned the fan base into a superpower. Dennis Allen does not understand how to tap into that. And at a certain point, winning is enough. Like winning will get people behind you, but it does like that 2021. It was not this battle the whole way like it was this year. And you finished with the same record. You did basically the same thing. You had a 5-game losing streak in that season, right? Like, and you finished with, I think, wins in 4 of your final 5 games, got to 9-8, missed the playoffs. But did it feel like this?
Yeah, poor DA can't do anything right for this squad. It's
poor guy.
And just like I said, that post game really had my jaw drop just because I couldn't believe what he was saying to us. Just be quiet.
Francisco Pomar says, fire Dennis Allen, biggest wussy in the NFL. So embarrassing.
You went from a 7-win team to a 9-win team. Sorry, he's not going anywhere.
No, and I mean, like, I think he earned another season. Like, as frustrating as that might be for some people, he did.
Whatever, right?
No, not everybody earned another season. And I want to talk about, like I said, I want to talk about Trevor Penning in this next episode. And I talked to James Hurst and DA about it. And one guy who I think, with a lot of people are saying this guy's going to get fired, you're going to move on. In a lot of instances, I'm like, yeah, let's pump the brakes. Like, you're going to take your time. You're going to do this. I think Doug Marrone is and I don't know if maybe because I think Mickey is a strong Doug Marrone supporter, so maybe that makes things difficult. But
not when you've seen O-line play the last 2 years.
Well, I mean, I don't think the O-line. It's funny because the O-line I don't think played terribly, and that's why I wonder if maybe Kevin Carberry is a guy you keep around. I just don't think I don't think you can look at Trevor Penning's development into a player that you are not even willing to put on the field under any circumstances. Like, Andres Pete left the game. He left the game. He was hurt. Trevor Penning's active. And instead of putting him in a game that is meaningless in terms of you have won it already, it's over. Right. You don't think a couple reps there for the guy would be, why is he active then? Because they bumped to James Hurst from left guard to left tackle, put in Max Garcia. Like, what will it take to get this guy on the field? They would rather play Tommy Kramer than Trevor Penning. And like, if he is not ready to play, then that is on the coaching, right? And one of the reasons I think the Arthur Smith thing is intriguing in terms of maybe one of the reasons DA wanted to kind of play damage control is, Arthur Smith is a former offensive lineman. Arthur Smith was an offensive line coach for the Tennessee Titans. If you are not planning to bring in Arthur Smith as an offensive coordinator, but you do want to consider him for a job, wouldn't the offensive line coach job make sense? Anyway, I just think Doug Marrone, I like Doug. I think Doug has been good with the media. I think he's very informative. Like he's honest. I don't think it's resonated this year the way you hoped it would, particularly with Trevor M. When you spend a first round pick on a guy, you typically wouldn't say that you're going to base your coaching decisions around specific players, but when you spend a first round pick on a guy that you need to show something, then yes, like if I don't see the development with this coaching staff and this approach, then yes, I do make a change. So I think, to me, if you're trying to pick the most obvious coaching change that could happen, that's the one I point to is offensive.
To me, you said it was right there. It's damning. The game's in hand, and you need someone on the field. And what's Tommy Kramer's in the game? What?
Tommy Kramer
still can't get Trevor in. But like you said, he's active though, and good enough to do field goal unit. But that's about it. It's that one is one that doesn't sit right, and just something definitely has to be done there. And number one, you do have to go to his coach.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do? Like, I don't know. To me, that's damning, right? Like, again, you're talking about a first round pick. This isn't a sixth round pick. And like you're like, clearly there's a disconnect there. Because again, you won't even put him in the game when you're down. Like, it's not like, I would understand if he's not the starter, but again, I've said this, he's not good enough to be the backup. What are we doing?
He can't get in any kind of rotation to get a couple snaps here and there.
It makes he's not even the jumbo lineman. Like,
right.
How is it possible that he can't go in there and run block? Like, and like you put Max Garcia in there and he false started. Like, it's not like the other guys are just blowing you away. It's clear that there's just, why isn't he inactive? It's like they keep him active in order to avoid having to answer the question of why he's inactive. He didn't do anything.
Right.
Anyway.
No, definitely one of the maddening things on the Saints roster this year. The other one's the usage of Jimmy Graham, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Wait.
You got one?
Pammy whammy says, so if it was Jimmy, would it have been different? And this is one thing I just wish I could get the answer to in terms of if Jamaal had run for a touchdown like week 2, and this was not an equation where you're like, we got to get Jamaal his touchdown. Would they still have gone AWOL and thrown a touch, like tried to find a way to get Jimmy Graham a touchdown? I don't know how you would, because he's not in the victory formation, but like,
no, to me, it's not about Jimmy Graham. It was just the one not listening to your head coach, and then your head coach throwing the team under the bus. That's really what it is.
I would have loved to see Jimmy get one last touchdown, get to 70, get a round number. Although maybe he wanted to
everybody.
Maybe he wanted to ride off into the sunset with the 69.
Oh,
nice. But yeah, because I think it's like, dunk it. If these officials want to be the villains and throw a flag, make them.
Go right ahead. That would have been epic. Oh my God! Against the Falcons, you close it out. Jimmy gets one last touchdown, dunks it in the dome. Good night, everybody.
Right, and again, like all DA had to do was play ball with the team. All he had to do was say, "Let's have fun." And he didn't. And I think that's, to me, that's the biggest. Like,
he's not wrong though, too, for following the quote unquote rules of the game right there.
Yeah, like the unwritten rules, whatever. Like, you can go. Yeah. Like, I agree with the unwritten rule that you should not run a play out of the victory formation. Because again, like we talked about in the first segment, like you are getting the benefit of the doubt from the defense, and they're not doing, like, they could fire off the line. But what, like, they don't, because that's the deal.
Next time they will.
And I think that's what when Ed Daniels is going at Jameis, that's what he's kind of talking about. It's like, what if someone, how about next time when they fire off the line because they're pissed off that you did, and then someone gets hurt, right? And someone loses an ACL because anyway. So I agree. I understand that. I think that's more than fair. Let's see. There's one more. So this is one that I think is funny, and I talked to people in the media room about this today because I think it's weird. So Rubber Johnny says, wasn't Jamaal Williams' touchdown about a contract incentive? No, this had nothing to do with contract incentives. I've seen this circulated. No one has a contract incentive around one touchdown.
Hello, come on.
That's not how this works. No, I don't think he had any contract incentives, period. But like
maybe two.
No, like they had nothing to do with an incentive. This was all about let's get one for Jamaal. Like that's it. This isn't like in 2020 when Emmanuel Sanders needed 8 catches, so you peppered him.
Yeah, right.
Like they'll do that. Teams will do that. Like that's
Right.
that's not out of the like that's. I understand why people might think this, and if there was an incentive tied to it, then it would be like I get it, right? Then it would make a little more sense. No, it was just let's get this guy a free touchdown, which just seems so. I don't know. Like that's like I agree with Bobby in that sense of like
maybe if it was for an incentive, I wouldn't be as pissed off, honestly, because it's all right. They did it for the money, man.
Yeah. Well, I think teams should like. I think Dalton Schultz finished like 1 catch shy of his like $250,000 incentive for the Texans, and I think any organization. I think whether some organizations would still pay that out, some wouldn't, and I think. Either way, that says a lot about you. Because like, what's the spirit of this, right? Like, what's the idea behind an incentive? You played your ass off and you get a little extra money. And if you're going to be cheap about that 1 catch, I'm interested to see if the Texans do pay that out. Because I think the Saints have done that. I think the Saints paid out an incentive, maybe for Craig Robertson. I want to say it was probably 2016, where he like finished like just shy of 1, and they paid it out anyway. And for a guy like Craig, who doesn't make crazy money. Like he makes crazy money relative to like me, but by NFL standards, he's like, destitute. And so like that, those incentives mean a lot.
Craig Robinson, by the way, one of my all-time favorite interviews in a Saints locker room. He was great.
He's great. I love Craig. Justin Pasquale says, I know, and I'm glad. It says the potential to be one of the best rivalry games in the entire NFL. These two teams just hate each other and makes it all the better. I that's why I wish DA would lean into the rivalry. That's one thing.
Embrace the dark side, Dennis.
Yeah, exactly. Be the villain. You can root for a villain. Sean has always been the villain.
Oh, absolutely. Because it was PBM, like he's our villain.
PBM 8264. We met at the Dome. He came up and said hi. Real life Derek Carr stan. Not faking it.
Okay.
He says no other QB but Winston would have done that, and like I agree with this. And not in the sense
that middle finger from Winston.
Not in the sense that no QB in the league would have done that, but no other QB on the Saints would have done that. Like if this was Jake Haener, a rookie or a second-year player, who is just trying to like make his way in the NFL, you're not going to do that, right? Derek Carr is not going to. He's the starting quarterback. He's going to be like, haha, guys, yeah, I understand it, but they want us to do this, so we're going to do this. And, maybe Derek Carr's a wet blanket. Sure. Like, that's kind of, are you surprised?
I almost feel like it's Winston's, like, finger going out the door saying, listen, these guys will listen to me even more than you kind of thing.
I don't think it's necessarily that, but I do think it is kind of he was in a position where he disregarded any possible repercussions because he's like, what are you going to do to me?
Right.
Like, he's made plenty of money in the
bring
NFL.
Me back next year and I won't sit on the bench and get a chance when the quarterback's shoulders hurt. Okay, no problem.
Right. Like he clearly has no future here in terms of becoming a starting quarterback at all. Like that's never going to happen. Even if Derek Carr got hurt, they'd probably just go to Jake. Like you've seen it. Like you understand like the situation. He's a good teammate. Like that's why I think everyone is jumping over themselves to support him because he is such a good teammate. And he has been so uplifting despite the situation he's in, which is I was the starter here and then I got hurt and they took my job away and gave it to Andy freaking Dalton, who can't even start in Carolina on a 2-15 football team. That's the guy. The backup to Bryce Young was the guy that they took my job away and gave it to him and then let him go.
Right.
And then let him go so that they could sign somebody else to play over me. And then whenever that guy got hurt, they were like, oh, he's fine. No, he'll play. And then at the end of the season, they're like, well, he was hurt the whole time, so we can't judge him on that. But we still played him because, hey, so like you put Jameis in that situation where he had nothing to lose because you engineered a scenario where he had nothing to lose. You created the monster.
Yeah.
DA.
Yeah.
Like you are in this scenario because of your own decisions. Whether and like I think Derek has played pretty well over the like I think he showed why you brought him in over the last month of the season. And I don't know what this team would have looked like if it was Jameis for 17 games versus Derek for 17 games, but that's we'll never know. But like I fully believe that there's a reason, like this was like a perfect storm that ended with this the way it did. Like
Crazy.
There's so little, there's so many things that had to go a certain way for us to end up winning a game 48-17 and not talking about it. And that's where we are. But I love Jameis. Like I'm a big Jameis fan in terms of the person and the type of teammate he is, and the encouragement, and just how he's always upbeat, and how he has taken all of these kind of things that have come to him, whether he likes it or not. I think that's kind of that's all I have.
I'll have no comment on Winston just because I do not appreciate his free hands on women, I guess I'll say.
Oh, well, yeah, sure, fine.
I'll leave it there.
You can go back to that. I'm just talking about since he's been here. Like, you can talk about whatever happened in Tampa or Florida. I'm talking about the person that I know. I can't speak to what happened before I met Jameis, right?
I never feel that he's real. I'm sorry. For me, I feel it's all an act.
Yeah. I mean,
but that's
your
me.
opinion.
Right.
Yeah. I can't tell you you're wrong. All I can say is like I think as a starting quarterback, I've said this before, like he's a platitudes guy. Like he'll say a lot of stuff that doesn't mean anything. And that's one thing that I think is funny, where like people prefer that until it's reality, and then you're like, he doesn't say anything. He's just and it's like Jalen Hurts is just like, oh, it's all on me. I'm like, yeah, but why is it on you? What did you do wrong? And then Derek says honest things. That DA is honest, and it's like he's throwing him under the bus. I think it's funny. There's no winning in certain ways, but
no, you're right.
Let's move on. Couple more questions here. There's like 55 more comments that have come in since I starred them all. So
I'm sure all about the Jamaal touchdown.
Yeah, no, a lot of it is Derek Carr was terrible for the first 11 games, and he was okay. I wouldn't say he was awful, but I think you see it. And I mean, I'm curious to see what they're going to do in the draft, right? Like, you're going to pick number 14. The last time they picked number 14, they took Marcus Davenport. The time before that, they took Malcolm Jenkins. So you clearly like guys with M's to start their name. So maybe a Marcus Williams type. They also drafted Ronaldo Turnbull in 1990 at number 14 overall. That was the year I was born. So I don't have much of a recollection for whether Ronaldo Turnbull was any good.
Well, you should know, Jeff, though, we're not staying at number 14. We're moving on up.
I wish they would trade down. Asset collection. No, we'll see. We'll see. All right. One more. West Bank Rink. Love the rant. Thank you. Let's see. I just want to get one more good one here. Peyton Turner will have 10 sacks next season, says Lehman Park.
Heyo.
Well, here's the thing. Like, and I know this is kind of a joke, but I do think a 10-sack season is in there. He's been productive.
Is a 10-game season in there?
That's the real question.
Right, exactly.
That's the bigger question, right? Because when he's been in there, he's made an impact. And I think, it's funny because we look at the offensive line or the defensive line and we say, man, they really underperformed this year relative to expectations. Well, part of the expectation was to have Carl Granderson and Peyton Turner in a rotation, or at the very least have Peyton Turner kind of spell in, right? He just didn't have that. And like, again, like he was playing really well. Everyone was talking about it after that Chargers game, right? where he just put a guy in a spin cycle and forced a fumble in the backfield. Remember that? Isn't that a lifetime ago? Anyway.
Did that really happen?
It did. Go look it up. Go Google Peyton Turner Chargers and look at all like the film review videos of like Peyton Turner's gonna have a monster season.
That is one of the coolest things. Like nowadays, if you can just YouTube anything and you can find it pretty much. Like I'm just saying with sports plays kind of thing. And it's really amazing. I tried to Google old like Bobby Hebert highlights. You really can't find them out there. I'm like, that sucks. I want to like put a montage together of the canon.
Yeah. All right. Oh, we got one here. Tim Fabenro says, we seem to keep forgetting that we had the softest schedule in the league and played backup QBs. What would we be celebrating at 9-8? And I mean, fine. Right. I'm not saying that this is a massive resounding success, but I did predict 10-7, like it's not like I wasn't out there saying 15-2. It was funny. We were talking about this in the media room today of like, it was funny because like 4 weeks ago, we was like, oh, these Homer reporters all said 10-7 and they're not even going to get to 8 wins. And everyone was like, you got him. Yeah, dunk on him, fool. And then it's like, well, would you look at that? They're 9-8.
Right, exactly. Apples and oranges right there.
Right. It didn't go, I mean, I don't know I can't remember how I predicted it, but,
it definitely seemed a lot more sexier in my head than how it turned out. Right.
And like 10-7, where you're talking about 9-8 versus 10-7 and a game that you led 17-0 with 12 minutes to go and you lost it. Like that's the difference between being 10-7 and 9-8. Right. So in that sense, like the broader calculus of this season kind of went the way I anticipated in that way. But no, I mean, yeah, they did have an easy schedule, but they did beat like what are you talking about with the easy schedule in terms of what bad teams did they lose to? Like that's kind of where you look at it and you say, did they take advantage of the easy schedule? They did, but like the Falcons, right? Like the Falcons lost to the Cardinals and the Panthers and at least one other the Commanders, right? Like they lost to the teams picking at the top of the draft. The Saints lost to playoff caliber teams, right? Like teams that were in contention until the very end, right?
The Minnesota game hurt me too because you didn't have even Jefferson or that was the Pastronauts last game or one of the last games he played.
Yeah, that's probably the worst loss in terms of you look at it, but it's still not like a loss to the Panthers.
Right.
Right? Like you're talking about a loss to the Packers, which is a playoff. Like, let's go through them, right?
Green Bay.
I mean, you just look at it and you say, okay, where are the bad losses? The issue is you didn't beat these teams that would be in a pick'em, right? So you lost to Green Bay there in the playoffs. You lost to Tampa Bay there in the playoffs. You lost to Houston there in the playoffs. You lost to Jacksonville, who at the time almost looked like a slam dunk playoff team. They missed. They should have made the playoffs. Like everyone was talking about at that point. But I can't believe the Saints didn't hire Doug Peterson. Well, where's Doug Peterson now?
Right.
I mean, geez, that team fell off the face of the earth. But either way, like at that point, like it's funny because at the time everyone would be like, yeah, that's one of the better teams. And now you look at it as a bad loss. But even then, you're talking about a team that probably should have been in the playoffs. You lost to Minnesota, a team that, again, that's a bad loss. That's one of your worst losses, but still they were in the run. Like they were still a playoff caliber team. You lost to Atlanta again, that's not a great loss in retrospect, but it's a division game on the road. Again, another team that could have potentially made the playoffs in week 18. You lost to Detroit, the 3 seed in the playoffs, right? You lost to the Rams, a playoff team. So, like, again, like, yes, you had an easy schedule, but you didn't lose to bad teams. You just didn't beat good teams. And that's a whole other thing. But like you look at the schedule next year,
right?
And it's not going to be that much more. Like you're talking about, like the thing is, like people are looking at the schedule next year and they're saying, oh, it's going to be more difficult. But in the sense that, how did you get to 9-8 this year? You beat the bad teams on your schedule, which you're still going to have bad teams on your schedule. and you lost to the good teams on your schedule. Well, all you're doing is like if you're going to assume you're going to lose to the Chiefs, you're going to lose to whoever, you're just slotting those teams into the teams you lost to this year, and you're still looking at the same general thing. And hopefully, you can play better and beat some of those teams. So I don't buy this idea that the schedule is going to be more difficult. So the Saints are going to win 5 games, but you have to play like you did to close out this season when you beat the Bucs, right? When you beat the Falcons, when you beat the Giants. Like those are the games that you have to be better in than you were in the first half of the season when you lost to the Packers, you lost to the Texans, you lost to the Jags.
I got a question for the mailbag. Your first year on the sideline, what was your favorite game this year?
That's a good question. Favorite game or favorite like location?
I guess favorite game that you got to call. Like what do you feel like you had the best game too? Like you had a plethora of knowledge to share with us.
Oh, in terms of my calls, they were all bad. Tennessee, because I got to watch it from home. No, that's a joke.
Oh no, come on.
I thought Tampa was fun. I had a good time in Tampa.
Okay.
Because it was late in the season. I didn't know what to expect going into that game, right? Like I said on the podcast, I expected them to phone it in and lose by 20. And instead they showed up and, I enjoy watching road fans be sad.
Sure.
I really enjoyed the Packers game up until like about 8 minutes left. That was a lot of fun, but it wasn't fun in the end. But like
what amazed me about Green Bay too is how close fans are to the field. There's not much sideline room.
Yeah, you're right. There's only one entrance in and out of the stadium. The Giants game was fun. Even though I kind of, in any other week, I'm like, go Giants.
Right, exactly.
I thought that was a fun game to watch. The Lions game, as funny as that is, like you go down 21-0, that comeback was a heck of a lot of fun. Like I enjoyed being on the sideline. Sideline is cool. There's a clip, Bijan Robinson's touchdown. I tweeted it. I quote tweeted it. You can see me. I'm at the corner of the end zone. You can see me. I'm so proud of myself. I just stood there like this, like I did not move a muscle. Like, the camera pans over me. I look like a statue. I'm just. I enjoyed it. I thought that was funny because I was just like, you sons of bitches. Yeah. Yep. Season in the books. It's always like sentimental for me, because I feel like you should get a yearbook.
Right, like the memories. You hear the music playing in the background.
As we go.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
We remember.
They played that song with so and so.
They played that song. Were you up in the? You probably weren't up in the press box at that point, but they played that song, whatever it's called, by TLC, I think, the graduation song. But they played it over a montage of Cam Jordan sacking Matt Ryan because Matt was calling the game. Matt was in the booth calling the game for CBS. So that was funny. I enjoyed that.
No, the last time we saw Cam approach him on the sideline and give him a big bear hug from behind. So I think that's hilarious that even though they were really mortal enemies there because Cam's coming after him, they're still really good pals and kind of laugh it off right now.
Yep, I agree. But all right, you ready to wrap this thing up?
Let's do it. I got to cook dinner.
Yeah, seriously, it's 6:00. Now, this storm has kind of been a nothing burger. I expected my windows to blow in and everything. Didn't happen.
My wife said that Bob Breck's blog or whatever he does, she said it's coming more overnight. So be braced.
Okay, so maybe I spoke too soon.
Right, exactly. Hold off there. Relax, Dennis Allen.
But, again, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks everyone who stuck with us all season. We've seen some really nice growth on YouTube and in the podcast feed. I really do encourage everyone, if you have any opinions, if you want to ask for segments, if you want to get into stuff specifically, hit me up on Twitter. My DMs are open. It's at Jeff_Nowak. You can complain to Steve too if you want. But yeah, and then I really appreciate everyone who's been around this season. I've had fun. I enjoy doing these podcasts. As a reason, like we never intend to come on here and talk for 90 minutes. It just happens. But yeah,
there's just so much to get out about this team, and we appreciate totally everybody that tunes in.
Yeah, and we're gonna, it's not like we're gonna stop podcasting here. We're just gonna switch into off-season mode. But it is fun, and so who dat? Go Saints in 2024.
Can't wait.
Number 14, baby. Let's do it. Mock drafts.
Oh, no.